Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 6th of March, comes to you from London. And we start, as always, by looking at currencies, Western stock markets, some commodities, US tech stocks, and we'll take a look at some UK stocks today as well. So we start by looking at the dollar. Dollar just really struggling to hold on to its gains last week, just coming back below the cloud this morning. But at the moment, the short-term chart is still pretty bullish. We've got upside targets of 2.5%, 2.8%, and this one of 3.5%, just going up this trend line on support. So even though we're down this morning and coming back below the cloud, we are just gradually marching up this hill, and we see that trend showing up more clearly in the medium-term chart. It's a weekly chart here, 1% point in figure, daily, 0.5%, and 60-minute, and 0.1% on the 60-minute. So this is my long-term, medium-term, and short-term. So we see here that at the moment we're still very bullish in the long-term and the medium-term. Just the short-term is turning a little bit more bearish, and that means for the euro that the euro has conversely turned a bit bullish, just breaking support here. We've got these downside targets. If we move above the levels that these were given at, then they will be broken. So the euro does look still pretty bad on the medium and long-term charts. If we look at Japanese yen, we see here that the dollar yen rate is just coming back a little bit here, the dollar coming through as well. So at the moment, it's just dollars just showing a little bit of short-term weakness. Sterling had a bad end to the week last week, heading below the 122 level momentarily, but we are just back up again this morning slightly, but we're below the cloud on all three time frames. Pretty bearish. We've got downside targets of 121.16 and 117.70. That's 4% downside to that 117 target. And at the moment, we're below the cloud. Notice how the lagging line really struggled to get above the cloud. So sterling's still looking pretty bad, and short term, we're seeing another fall off. Against the euro, we see that showing through as well. We were as high as 118 just a week ago. We're now down at 115.50, so really falling away there as well. If we look at the sterling Swiss chart, we see that really showing through there, 123.76. And we look at the Australian dollar chart. Australian dollar weakness here, sterling strength. We see that just kicking away as well. Looking at the US stock market, look at the S&P 500. We see here that we're bullish on the weekly, the daily, and the 60-minute chart. Still looking pretty good all round. And we've got upside targets here of around 3% in the short term. 2460s is the level that we're looking to, when 2380s at the moment. So a good 80-point rise there potentially for the US stock market. Looking at the Nasdaq, much the same picture. We don't have the short-term targets as clearly on the Nasdaq, but the market's still looking very bullish, especially on the long-term chart. And we're looking at the Dow. Again, very bullish chart. Shortage of short-term targets, but the medium and long-term are bullish. And the Russell, not quite as bullish, but we do have the upside targets in the short term here as well. 6%, 5%. So it does show that we've still got good upside potential. The futures this morning just showing about a 0.5% downside, so the US market might open a little bit weaker today. Looking at FTSE, we're just off this morning, but we are above the cloud on all three time frames, so nothing too major to worry about. New all-time highs last week, and we got upside of 755, so 7,555. So that's about 3% upside from here. So still a pretty bullish picture for the UK market. And the 250 looking pretty good too. Multiple targets here on all the charts. Upside potential still strong. The DAX, we're above on the DAX on all three time frames. The Nikkei above on all three time frames, down about 0.5% overnight. The Hang Seng was actually up just very slightly, 0.2%, but we are below the cloud on the Hang Seng on the short term. Shanghai Composite just holding the short term cloud. The long term picture still a slightly bearish, just wandering out of the cloud there. Sensex, this is the Indian market, bullish on all three time frames. The Australian market just below the cloud, but lots of upside targets. If you look at that short-term chart, just lots of upside targets. 3.5%, 4%, 5%, 7%, 3.7% upside. So lots of upside targets there for the Aussie market. Taking a look at commodities, we start with Brent crude. boy, oh boy, we're really just stuck in this range here, the 55, 57, 50 range. It's a very unusual tight range for this time of year. The seasonality normally pretty strong, where we trend up, just not happening this year. So that's just showing some inherent weakness for crude. The fact that we can't rally in the strong period of the year does suggest we will see weakness later in the year. If we break to the upside, then we may play catch up. But this is just really worrying, the fact that we just can't break above that. Bearish on the short-term chart below the cloud. So interestingly, it's just really hard to call. The long-term target's still to the upside, but at the moment we really are stuck in a range. Same with WTI. US nat gas has broken above the cloud, and that's quite bullish. We're nudging back to this $3 mark, but we do have a mountain to climb in terms of the medium-term chart. Copper, interestingly, has fallen away just below the cloud here on the short term, but the medium and long-term chart's looking good. Going straight to gold, we see here that we're still just below the cloud on the short term. We haven't negated this upside target of 1287. We need to fall below about 2220 for that to happen, but we are just in a bit of a range here at the moment. But the long-term chart is still bullish. The medium-term chart has broken out, probably just coming back to test some support here. So this just looks like short-term weakness, nothing more. Same with silver. If we take a look at the US Treasury yields, just sitting at this 246 level, again, just really range bound here. So at the moment, it's pretty bullish in all three time frames. Apple on Friday, still holding on to the bullish trend. Google, again, holding on to those bullish trends. Amazon, much the same. Facebook nudging new highs last week. Lots of upside targets. 140s is the next stop there. 140.7, 141. Be interesting to see if we can do that this week. Microsoft just struggling really, just in this sideways range here, but bullish in the medium and long term. And Nvidia fell away further on Friday. I'm glad I sold these last week. Just taking a look at some of the UK stocks. We start with just looking at the FTSE. One of the things I like to do with FTSE is just rank where the performers are. So we see here Anglo American, WP, Glencore, the bad performers, Rio. So a lot of the commodity stocks at the bottom. Standard Life on merger news with Aberdeen Asset Management are up this morning by 6%. We see the jump there. Interestingly, the short-term chart was showing all these targets, and that's where we've gone to. So not a great surprise in terms of the chart, even though the market will have been taken by surprise by this move. We look at EasyJet. We're seeing bullish moves in the short term, but still bearish medium and long term. Rangel Resources just up this morning, but just not quite above the short-term chart. Then look at things like IAG, British Airways, just getting back into bullish territory here in the long term. Will be helped by those fuel prices, of course. We also looked at a short list on Friday where we did a scan, and again, I just like to do a percentage change on those to see how they're doing. So WPP we see has fallen further this morning, just really now just testing this support level. Will this be buying opportunity? Hard to say. We've got a 14% downside as a result of that move. That's the first thrust, and now we've gone lower. So a little bit worrying for WP shares there. Euro money just kicking up, breaking out of that sideways. You can see not a lot of liquidity in the 60-minute chart, but pretty good looking all around. So the charts that we came up with, those scans, are the ones that you want to just have a close eye on. JP Morgan and Indian Investment Trust looking pretty good there. BlackRock, again, with Frank Morton, we're seeing that looking pretty good as well. Savills, up 0.75%. So these are the stocks that came up in our scan on Friday, if you watch that Scanning UK Stocks. So that's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.